Welcome back to Old Charles, the United Kingdom, 1979. A year of profound fracture. A fundamental shift in the very soul of the nation. To understand its value you must first feel its texture. The texture of decay. The texture of conflict. The texture of a cold new dawn. Quick cuts, newspaper headlines. Power cuts. Winter of discontent. Strikes chaos. Rubbish piling high in Leicester Square. Grave diggers on picket lines. A slow-motion shot of a candle guttering out. The value of 1979 is not found in a coin or a banknote. It is found in the exhaustion of a social contract. The post-war consensus, a rusted machine grinding to a halt. The value was in the choice presented. A stark binary choice. On one side, the value of collectivism. The trade union as the ultimate arbiter of power. The nationalized industry as a public good, not a business. A belief in managed decline. A belief in cushioning the blow. The value was solidarity. The cost was stagnation. On the other side, a new value. The value of the individual. The value of the homeowner, the shareholder, the entrepreneur. A radical belief not in managing decline but in reversing it. The value was aspiration. The cost was community. The value of 1979 was the death of the industrial heartland and the birth of the service economy. It was the valuation of financial acumen over manufacturing muscle. The Big Bang was still 7 years away, but the fuse was lit here. The City of London began its metamorphosis from a club to a global powerhouse. The value was also in the rupture. The brutal theater of the street. The miner's lamp versus the policeman's shield. This was not merely a political dispute. This was a spiritual war for the identity of Britain. The value of 1979 was confrontation. The belief that certain battles could not be avoided. That the pain was necessary medicine. The value was inflation. A psychological enemy eating savings. Eroding time. The fight to conquer it would define the economic dogma for a generation. The value was also in new technology. The microchip, the early computer. The seeds of a different future were being planted in secret quiet rooms far from the picket lines. And then the ultimate value. Sovereignty. The value of national self-determination. This year was a quiet rehearsal for a louder conflict decades later. The argument over Europe began here, not with a bang but with a detailed negotiation about agricultural subsidies and budgetary rebates. The value of Britain's place in the world was being recalibrated, the cultural value. A nation still in brown and beige. 3 television channels. A collective experience of shared anxiety. Yet beneath the surface, punk's fury was fading. New romanticism's escapism was brewing. The individual was preparing to express themselves. To style themselves. To distinguish themselves from the mass, the supreme irony. The defining value of United Kingdom 1979 was discord. It was the year the pendulum swung with violent force. It valued the market over the state. The private over the public. The individual over the collective. It valued the hardening of hearts for the long war ahead. The landscapes changed. The maps redrawn. The very grammar of British life was rewritten. Think of history not as a line but as a vast and intricate network. A mycelial web beneath the soil of our modern world. Every event, every person, every idea is a node, a connection point. The fall of a grain price in Rome vibrates through the web and is felt in the hunger of a medieval peasant. A philosophical concept born in ancient Greece travels through centuries, mutating and emerges in the constitution of a new nation that we are walking archives. Our language is a museum of dead empires and vanished tribes. Our bodies carry the genetic legacy of countless migrations. Plagues and survival stories. Our very thoughts are shaped by philosophical frameworks built by people who walked under different suns. History is the story of thresholds. The moment fire was harnessed. The moment the wheel turned. The moment a virus jumped from animal to human. The moment someone imagined a god. The moment someone declared all people equal. These are the irreversible doors humanity has walked through. There is no return. That it is also the story of climate and geography. A mountain pass, a river delta, a drought, a volcanic winter. These forces penned the first chapters of our story long before we knew how to write them down. The search for resources, spices, silk, gold, oil has been the engine of so much of our tragedy and our innovation, but beware the tidy narrative. History is not a morality tale progressing toward a happy ending. It is a chaotic collision of ambition, accident, and adaptation. Great plans shatter on the rocks of stubborn reality. Trivial events cascade into world-altering consequences. A missed message, a stray bullet, a sudden storm. These are the punctuation marks of our past. The study of history is therefore an exercise in humility. It reveals the fragility of our systems. It shows how the mighty and the arrogant are toppled by the relentless tide of change. It teaches us that our current way of life is not the natural order but a fleeting arrangement, a temporary consensus. To know history is to acquire a second sight. You look at a border and see the river of blood that defined it. You look at a wealthy family and see the colonial enterprise or the industrial exploitation that built its fortune. You look at a folk song and hear the lament of a displaced people. The present becomes a palimpsest, a parchment where the old writing still shows through. This knowledge is not a burden but a liberation. It frees you from the tyranny of the now. It reveals that things have always been changing. That crises have always been endured. That alternatives have always existed. The past is a catalogue of human possibilities, a reservoir of forgotten solutions and warnings that we are not prisoners of history. We are its custodians and its continuers. We stand at the growing edge of this immense and tangled story. The choices we make, the values we champion, the truths we tell about ourselves will become the artifacts the future will puzzle over. So engage with history not as a spectator but as a participant. Question the monuments. Listen to the subtext. Find the counter-narratives. Understand that you are living in a moment that will one day be a paragraph, then a sentence, then a footnote. Make it a footnote worth reading.